any Jedis, any other good guy characters from the Star Wars universe are in the Rebel Legion, and we partner with them on just about all our events. All our events are what we call cross-posted. They're posted on the 501st, and they're posted on the Rebel Legion. And then members check the forums online and say, okay, well, where can I fit my schedule? What can I try to do? And they sign up and say, okay, I'm going to be at this event, I'm going to be at this event. And we maintain, I'm the event coordinator for Long Island, so I maintain the events for the 501st Legion. And then anything that we get in, we also pass off with permission from the organizers to the Rebel Legion and see if there's any interest from the Rebels. I find it exciting when we had like the Cradle of Aviation last week. We had 25 people in costume, about half, almost right down the middle, was half Jedis and X-Wing pilots, and half Stormtroopers, and Kylo Ren, and a couple of other cool characters. So it was really cool having like both of them there, and we had an incredible Princess Leia, which they did a whole little skit with Princess Leia and Darth Vader coming up with the chocolate.
And
it was for the chocolate festival.
Finn and Rey as well.
And Finn and Rey were there too. It was just incredible having a mix of new, old, good guys, bad guys. It was just fantastic to have that.
It's a big universe.
Yes.
And you should also note that these are not the only two approved organizations. There's also Saber Guild, which does the stage lightsaber combat. Mando Mercs, if you like Boba Fett and you like personalizing your own, that's just the organization for you. And the last one I think is the R2D2 builders.
Yes.
I can't get the name wrong.
Astromex.net. They're a group that, again, a lot of our members are also cross members with that. If you're interested in building a droid for the movies, they have all the resources and all the tools and everything you need to build a droid. And a droid can run you anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000.
Yeah, these are not static. These are
actually remote controlled, fully automated, fully remote controlled.
We had someone make it.
Yeah, that was incredible. I've seen a couple of those.
Our first Sewanha Con, R2D2 was here,
Yes.
and he was very cool. And yep, that was really great. Any other questions?
How long did it take to make the
R2D2 can take months, and it's not only, it can actually take years. One of our guys, Richard Quester, who was the guy who came at that one, he does it like crazy. He's built about 4.
Wow.
And he just goes crazy. And he's very mechanically inclined, he's very electronic inclined, so he can whip these out like this. The problem you have to wait for, and if you ever check out that site, astromex.net, the domes and the different parts, some of them you have to wait for weeks or months for a particular maker to send you your dome, and they can run just the dome alone can be $800 just for the dome. And when I say the dome, I mean just the metal cutout. You still have to put all the pieces in, and the eyes, and the plates that are
The moving pieces, the wiring.
all of that stuff still has to be done. Just certain parts are just very, very prohibitively expensive.
A lot of the vendors who make these parts, they only may do 1 or 2 runs, what we call a run a year. So if you're not on that run, you can't buy it until the next run is done. That may be 6 months, it may be a year, maybe 2 years.
There's a lot of patience you learn in this hobby.
It took 3 years for me to get that helmet.
Like my suit, it took me 1 year bought it. Is it like one vendor they send me a specific costume, Stormtrooper, and the Force Awakens armor, everything you name it. It took some member it took me 2 years, 3 years. Mine it took me 1 year. I got it last year in December.
That's why Tracy off the runs.
Yeah. You have to pre-order. You have to pre-order. You have to be waiting online. Once you pre-order, there's like 10,000 fans, non-member, member. They order it. They've been so complaining why the costume taking so long.
Well, also, because if you have the skills, mechanical or otherwise, there's nothing stopping you from making all your own parts, which is the ideal, which would be the gold standard. Right? I'm not an excellent seamstress, for example, so there's some things that I can do and some things that I can't do. I like working with metal, making sure, but I can't sew with the darn, so I need to find somebody to help me out with my stuff. Some people are very good at vacuum forming plastic or working with fiberglass. You can do as much or as little as you want with this. As much flexibility and creativity as you have.
And the resources are all there. That's the brilliance there. You can get all the resources, reference photos, patterns for the different costumes. If you know somebody who can sew, you can get a pattern for the exact costume, get it to your measurements, and you'd have like a perfectly movie accurate costume.
Now, you said something before about having it to be approved. So if you have a costume and you Then you have to submit it, you have to take pictures in it, how do you?
There's what we call a general membership liaison who will review. We have a bunch of specifications. You start off at the 501st site. They have something called the costume reference library. It's all pictures of every angle, what you need to have included with that costume for approval, what that piece has to look like, down to every little part. And then if you can do that and get all that stuff together, you take a bunch of photos from every angle, you submit them to your local Garrison, and the GML looks it over and says, okay, you need to change this, you need to change that. It's a very helpful process. When I first submitted mine, I had a few little things. They said, change your gloves, make sure this is tucked in the right place here. They gave you little tips, and then you take the photos again, resubmit them, and once you're approved, that's it. You can come to any of our events, you can come to any of the approved events, you just sign up on the forms and show up. And we ask that you maintain that. We've had, a couple of guys whose stuff starts falling apart or it starts looking shabby. We have to maintain that standard. You have to continue to look like that every trip you do. And if anything breaks, you got to try to replace it before you go to your next troop. So not only do you have to have it approved initially, you have to maintain it and make sure that you're up to a certain standard, or you could get in trouble within the club or get on suspension from doing troops until you fix whatever it is that you need to fix.
And that's where detachments also come in.
Yes.
Detachments are a great resource. You're working on your costume, you say, okay, how do I look now? You post a picture on the forum, they go, oh, your chest box, these pieces are wrong, you gotta replace them, or your belt box, this is wrong, it's gotta be replaced. They're a great resource, they're a help. Just, a lot of people get offended, oh, you don't think my costume's good. No, we're trying to help the people make that costume better.
We're trying to give you the best representation from the media we can.
And there's also, on most costumes, there are 3 levels of the costume. You have your basic approval, your second tier, and your third tier. Third tier is being, you stepped off the screen. You used all the same parts. You're uber accurate. You can't get any more accurate.
And for that, it sometimes is things with mistakes, like in the movie, they painted their handguards and the paint would come off. Right. This is like the uber level, movie accurate gloves that have the paint.
You're level 3 on this.
Yes, a couple of parts right now are not
Right.
100%.
I'm a level 3 Beta.
This isn't, but I have a level 3 officer.
Yeah, he has a level 3 officer. So it's attainable. It's easy. It takes time and resources and
Being OCD and tech bay helps.
Yeah, tracking things. They're like this, the little red LED here on my box. I had to buy that from a guy in Germany. But because that guy doesn't ship to the United States, I have to contact a friend of mine in England to buy it and then ship it to me. So I said, while you're doing that, send me a dozen of them.
You can start as a little cottage.
That's basically what I did. I told them to other people in the Sith Lords. Same thing with the green ones. They were not, these are not available in the States. You have to buy them from Germany. Because they're antiquated parts. Back when they made these movies, well, they also built the costumes in England. These things were common. You can buy them in any electronics store. You can't do that now. The world's changed. Lightsaber. Believe it or not, this is a camouflage. That was its original life.
Like when they first made them, they built them out of like flashes and stuff like that.
This would have had a dish on the
It
top.
would have had a dish up on top of the flash bulb inside, and the guy would hold it. It would be connected by a wire to the camera, or it would be connected to the camera, or on a stand. But this was the flash. It held 3D batteries, and it's incredible. You cannot buy one of those flashes now. You cannot find one.
You can find them on eBay
Very,
for
very,
$2,000.
very, very rare
They're very
can you
rare.
find them. And when they do, he says they go for a ton of money. I know a place that has one and won't sell it to me because it's a camera shop. He says, you're not turning it into a lightsaber. I'm not going to let you do it. So
Movies are made differently now. Now there's no reason to kit bash.
Right.
Back then, they would just find a box of parts and let's put this together and make something. Now it's 3D printing and CAD design. There's no reason to have to do that unless you really want to. You can design anything you want in software and you just have it printed or made. So you don't have to go through that as much.
Like the customer, me and Shane were wearing like a knocking off.
Okay.
Keep that.
Japanese.
Didn't you have your other costumes had different?
Well, that's right. Well, that's where there are subtle differences. And
Right,
even
it
then,
had like different pens you were saying or something that were
You see, Joey has like what are called code cylinders. Now, what they really were was the radiation dosimeters, which is to measure radiation exposure. They were British. And there's 3 different models that were used on screen, but you would never know that unless you're us. So each costume and the ranks, the red and the blue, each rank has its own meaning. So each costume, even if, like, somebody will say, oh, you're a green guy, you're a black guy, but even then, there's differences between each one, whether you're having 2 or 1 and 1 or red and green. These are the things that keep me up at night. This is what defines what's screen accurate versus not. But yeah, so this costume, you take off some parts, you swap out for a few other parts, and I'm a whole different person. I wish life was like that.
Even things like the weapons in the movie, these are the blasters that you see the stormtroopers have, and actually some of the officers actually have them. This was just a Sterling submachine gun that was very common in the British Empire at that time. And they had tons of them from military stores. It was from World War II, and they had tons of them laying around. So all they did was put some furniture stripping on it, put a scope from an M83 Sherman tank scope. They put a counter that would be used to it's an electronic counter that would just count how many people went through a turnstile. And they stuck it on here and made it look like some kind of, futuristic blaster. Now, some guys in the club have perfected ways of making exact duplicates. They take a cast of the one with all the parts on it, and they cast it in this very special rubber. It's the same rubber they use on movies. Whenever you see a gun in a movie, it's usually made of this specialty rubber called hyperfirm. And if you want to pass this around, this is one solid piece of rubber, and this is basically relatively indestructible. So most of the stormtroopers, their go-to weapon is one of these because it's light. The real weapon weighs about 8 pounds. This one only weighs like less than a pound. So for trooping all day with this, you can actually hold that, look 100% accurate, and it's really just a giant hunk of rubber that's really detailed.
We will be keeping track of that.
Please don't try to kill the person next to you. If you do, you get extra credit for today. Really? Welcome to the dark side!
But you can see the detail on that is incredible. They make almost exact replicas that are just one giant piece of rubber in a very stiff, they call it hyper-firm rubber. Again, it's the same rubber they use to make props on movies that look realistic, and then you can drop them on the ground or hit somebody in the head with them, and they wouldn't hurt anybody because it's just rubber.
It's a free rubber. You can't kill people, sadly. Not today.
Anybody else have any other questions?
Any other questions?
Since there's so many movies from the saga, what are your favorites?
Mine, personal?
Yeah.
Okay.
Everyone's going to be different.
Some of it has to do with, I'm a little bit closer in age to Ron, so I was 9 when the original trilogy came out, so that sort of has cemented a certain place and memories in my psyche. But when the prequels came out, I think like Chris, I was very excited. Chris was a little bit older, so my expectations were different. I learned to handle disappointment well, and then I thought, well, okay, before this series just gets ruined entirely, because some of it is, is childhood memories that everybody sort of cements as core memories. For me, it was Empire Strikes Back. I'll never forget my father standing in the rain with me for 3 hours, which you would never do today because you would buy tickets ahead of time online and you'd get reserved seats. We didn't do that. So for me, those movies meant more than just the movie itself. It has to do with who I was, where I was, when I was. The new movies that are coming out, any Star Wars is good Star Wars. I like some of it more than others. I'm sure your prequels are, some people love them because that's the time that's what they grew up with. So it really depends. For me, it was Empire Strikes Back.
It's mine too.
Yeah. Well, objectively, I think it's probably, arguably, the best reviewed movie as just. Yeah, but it also means more. And I think, obviously, this is all very personal to each of us. So each one of us probably would have a different answer, and it would mean different things. Not just because of the movie, but because that's where I met my wife, or that's why I got divorced.
The man I was standing next to there, that was David Prowse. He was Darth Vader.
And I was just the Emperor standing next to.
He's the Darth Vader.
You can't go back.
No, I can't. That's the cycle.
If I may say something?
No.
Shut it, Vader! Alright, tall, dark, and wheezy.
Should be quiet.
about the people that they brought around from all over the world, the 200 teachers they brought from the 501st Legion and brought them to the Rose Parade to pull off that big event that they had. They had a whole like giant swath of the parade with stormtroopers. So that was also very exciting. And again, it's just because of the trust that Lucasfilm has in us and always representing the character properly, having guys who have, guys and women who have great hearts, who want to use their costumes for a good purpose in the community. And it's just incredible that they've put their trust in us and let us do these different events. And I'm very thankful for that. Okay, I think I've spoken enough. Does anybody have any questions about the club itself or any things about specific costumes? We love to talk about this stuff, so we could be here all day.
Yeah.
Feel free, don't be afraid.
We're not gonna fight you.
Is there an age requirement to
Yes.
join the club?
18,
There is an age 18.
but we do have the Galactic Academy.
We have the Galactic Academy that a lot of guys, especially guys who have children in our club, kind of got together and said, hey, you know, my kid wants to wear a super movie accurate, but a small one. We have a Galactic Academy where there's guys who buy and trade small downsized costumes that are remarkable. You look at the little stormtroopers sometimes that some of the guys bring, some of their children that they bring to the events, and it's remarkable. They look like just a shrunken down, perfectly sized, perfectly proportioned stormtrooper. So there is a Galactic Academy for younger folks, and that's a good way to get started. If you're just looking for tips, even just for Halloween, you're looking for tips on how to get the costume reasonably accurate, you know, for someday maybe joining the 501st, you can look at some of our forums. We actually have an interesting thing called detachments. For each different type of costume, there's a detachment. For instance, for the Stormtroopers, there's a detachment called the White Armor Detachment, also known as the 1st Imperial Stormtrooper Detachment. There's a website that has all information, all resources, photos, resources, places that you can buy different parts and different accessories for the costume are all located on that site. So anybody who's interested in a Stormtrooper, we point them to, go to whitearmor.net, and that's where you'll find everything you need to find out about Stormtroopers. If you're looking at the Emperor or Darth Vader or another Sith Lord, there's a Sith Lord detachment that has all the information about every different kind of Vader from each different movie, what the light sequences are, the lights for different movies, what the paint scheme is like in different movies, because believe it or not, it did vary between movies greatly. And we actually approve very specific Vaders. There's a New Hope Vader, Empire Strikes Back Vader, Return of the Jedi Vader, and there's even a prequel Vader, and now there's even a Rogue One Vader.
Well, they're working on that.
They're working on what they call the CRL, the Costume Reference Library for that, so that we can guide people as if you want to do the Rogue One Vader, these are all the parts you need, this is the paint scheme.
These points.
There's really subtle things you wouldn't even notice if you could just show the gloves, because I only noticed this, I had no idea.
Stitching patterns vary from glove to glove. Shape of the gloves vary from movie to movie. Same thing with the belt buckle. You see the little slits on the belt buckle? It varies from movie to movie, the shape of the slits. Some of them have rounded tops, some have rectangular tops, some are narrower, some are wider. The smallest one in A New Hope is just a drilled circle. It varies. There's quite differences in the helmets. The only thing that you can take from one movie to the other is the leather bodysuit, the shin guards, and the boots. Everything else is different. Subtly different, but different. Yes?
What would you say was the most memorable event you've ever attended? The charity?
I would say every hospital event we do. I mean, we just did a hospital about a month ago in Stony Brook, and it's not a big event. It's not like when we did the Cradle of Aviation, we have thousands of people and it's nonstop photos and we have 30 stormtroopers. When we do a hospital event, it's usually like 3 to 4 stormtroopers or Darth Vader and some other characters, and we only visit maybe 10 or 15 kids, but those kids really appreciate the visit. Those kids are usually really sick, they're going through some kind of treatment, they're going through some kind of rough time. And we visit them personally in each of their rooms, we give them some cards, we give them, these little tickets I give out that, say that you're in violation, you have to pay a fine to the Empire. And these kids, their faces just light up. And you see what a difference you can make just dressing in a plastic costume and taking some time out to go to a hospital and visit some kids. It's unbelievable. Those are the most rewarding troops for me. We do about 5 or 6 of them a year, and I can't even describe to you how emotional they sometimes get when you see a kid who's going through a rough time, who looks like, they're really suffering, and then you see them they see you and they just like kind of light up. It's just an unbelievable feeling.
Weird Al is fun too.
That's another funny side story. Weird Al is a big fan of us, and because he's a huge geek in real life.
You would have to, they have no clue.
You don't know who
You don't know who Weird Al is?
I know who he is.
Weird Al Yankovic.
Most teenage kids do
My
not.
son is Weird Al Yankovic in his Living Legends project for this coming Wednesday at St. Anne's. Check him out.
Wow.
This picture here is celebrations. All those people you see there are members of the Legion. We got, that's a big convention held every, well, they held it
As a matter of fact,
almost
this is going to be taking place in a couple weeks in Orlando.
30 days.
What
I haven't
day?
gotten my tickets yet.
You haven't got your tickets?
Well, Weird Al Yankovic is a song
flying out
parody
Thursday.
artist who's been around since the 80s, and he's done
We're flying
hundreds
down
and
the
hundreds of
8th.
song parodies.
Let me put it this way, you're not big until Weird Al
It's the
parodies
11th
your
to the
song.
14th.
Yes, that's true. You haven't made it yet in music. Well, every year he comes around, he does concerts. Every year for the past, since I've been
It's
in the
in
Legion for
Orlando.
10 years.
Tickets already.
Usually at Westbury Music Fair or Radio City Music Hall or
They
at
estimated
Paramount
it's gonna
out
be
in
between 6,000 and
Huntington.
7,000.
He'll invite us to come to the show, he'll have us backstage, he'll feed us, and he'll have us come on stage when he does, what's the song?
The legend begins.
The Legend Begins.
I
Saga.
heard that
Saga
one.
Begins.
That one's fun.
He does that funny Saga Begins song, and then he has like 8 stormtroopers and Darth Vader come on stage, and we do a whole dance routine that by now, I've done it about 8 times, I know it by heart at this point.
It's gonna
But
be a rockhead soon.
I gotta tell you,
Stormtrooper Rockettes. I
for
like
me,
that.
as a geek, when I was a kid, 15 in high school and stuff, listening to music, I was the geek who always loved Weird Al and thought he was hilarious. To be part of his show and actually hang out with him and get autographs from him and be actually in the show is just, it's like a dream come true for me. It's like, it was almost surreal the first time I did it. I'm like, I can't believe I'm standing here. And it's all because I put together a plastic costume. It's just crazy. But as I mentioned before, it's so much more than that. You put together a plastic costume, and what I always say to guys, some of the guys initially who meet us at conventions say, well, I just want a stormtrooper. That's all I want to do. I don't want to do any of this stuff. I said,
We have women too, by the way.
I keep saying,
Oh yeah, they're female stormtroopers.
we do have about 20% women who do various costumes. Some of the stormtroopers that we had at the Cradle last week were women that you would never know because they're in stormtrooper outfits.
Tell them
Yeah,
You
you
can tell
can't
them
tell.
when
The
they
way they
talk
swag.
and position themselves. That's it.
Yeah, but what I tell people who are just interested in the stormtrooper armor, I say to them, what are you going to do with it? You're going to spend $1,000, $1,500 on perfect movie accurate stormtrooper armor that's going to sit up in your attic or on a mannequin? What's the point? The whole purpose of doing this is not only can you do this, but you can show it off. You can help the community. You can use it for something good, and you can meet some incredible people. I can't tell you. Some of these guys I've known for 8 or 10 years since I've been in this club. It's such a fraternal type organization that you make such fast friends. It's unbelievable. And because it's not only the Star Wars, liking Star Wars that binds us. It's also being through doing the costume, also having that love for accuracy, also having that need to give back to the community. It brings a lot of very like-minded people together, and that's one of the things I love about the group. That's the thing I love most about the group.
Do you want to hear all of our favorite troops, or would you like to
Go ahead.
move on?
Do you have a favorite troop, Hyde?
My favorite troop was actually Star Wars Weekend. I actually found this organization through Disney, actually, when I went to Star Wars Weekend when I graduated Nassau Community. So within probably a year, I put forth I joined the sister organization, the Rebel Legion. With
We're
a
the
Jedi.
bad guys, there's also a good guy.
Yeah, we should mention
And
that.
I'll mention
Yeah.
it.
Some of us are dual members, one doesn't preclude the other.
I was going to ask if you could be in more than one character.
Depends
if
on
you
the day
wanted
of the
to.
week. Depends
Yes.
on the week.
Yes.
Yeah, sometimes we have guys who, if you need to sit down, or I have an X-Wing costume that I wear sometimes if I need to run a table, and then I'll switch into a stormtrooper later on in the day.
Right.
And a lot of us, the other thing I would like to mention, sorry, let me just mention one other thing. The other thing about this group is once you get in it, you start seeing other people's costumes, and you go, oh my God, I'd really like to do that. Oh my God, you end up with like 5 or 6 costumes. I personally now have about 6 costumes. I have the Stormtrooper, the new Stormtrooper from the new movie, which I can tell a little story about that later. The Emperor, and I have 2 Rebel costumes. I have an X-Wing pilot and a Luke from Return of the Jedi. Oh, and a Biker Scout. I've forgotten how many costumes I've accumulated. Almost every year I'm like, what am I going to do this year? I got to do something. And then you kind of rotate them. Like today I'm wearing the Stormtrooper. Tomorrow when we do the polar plunge, it's going to be like 15 degrees outside. We don't actually do the plunge. We just take pictures with the folks there. it's still gonna be freezing. I can wear the biker scout and like put clothes underneath it and actually be like snug under the biker scout outfit. So that's more of an outfit that I'll wear for like a trip like that. Plus I can actually drive in, except for a few parts, I can actually drive around. And it's embarrassing as hell with my kids when I drive up in my complete outfit except for like the helmet and they're like, Dad, oh my God.
He's that guy.
I'm that guy. I'm embarrassed the heck out of my kids. I'm sorry, Bob, what were we gonna say about celebration? Or
I wasn't gonna say anything.
Oh, okay.
I was saying Star Wars weekend.
Oh, yes, right, and we have the big celebration coming up in April.
Right.
There's a big celebration, they have all the Star Wars actors come, and all the 501st Legion members and all the Star Wars fans gather for the celebration that's held every year, and it's usually either in Europe, or it's in California, or it's in Orlando. This year it's in Orlando, most of our members are probably.
Last year was in London.
Last year was in London.
It alternates between the United States and Europe.
Every other year it goes back and forth. No, but just one note about the costumes. The First Order Stormtrooper, if you see the cards that we were passing around, you might see one that's of my new First Order Stormtrooper costume. That one I just actually finished back in October, and that's also a pricey costume. That's about $2,500. That's actually not even available to the public yet. We had a special arrangement with the company that makes the costume that's coming out with it in September of this year. They offered it as an exclusive to the 501st members to put it together, to try to test it out and give them feedback on it. And I was lucky enough to get one of the first like beta costumes that they came out with. And I'm proud to say I'm only the second person in New York who actually has the fully put together First Order Stormtrooper. So I was privileged and proud to actually get it together, and I was thrilled to actually wear it for the first time back in October of last year.
Chris, there's also something else. Who here has seen Rogue One?
Oh, come
Everybody
on!
Stop lying! Okay.
Oh my God.
Okay, for the rest of you that aren't lying, most of those stormtroopers that you see, they're actually members of the British Garrison.
Yeah, there's a couple of them that are actually members of the British, and in the Force Awakens, there's a couple that actually participated in the Force
The
Awakens.
R2s were all built by the British Garrison.
Even if we have members that have actually made droids for the movies as well.
Yeah, what they
You got a question?
You want a question?
So, you guys seem to be pretty dedicated followers of Star Wars.
Yeah.
What was the general reaction from you guys to know that not only were we getting a new trilogy, but like so many new movies are coming out?
Happy to enjoy it.
I lost my mind. I lost my mind. I mean, we went through this. You guys are too young to remember, I hope. When the prequels came out, I was very excited and very disappointed. Phantom Menace,
The best worst day of my life.
I came out of it going, some of it was okay. I thought, oh my
I was
God.
your guys' age when A New Hope came out. I saw it opening weekend. So, that's how long I've been a fan.
So you can imagine pins and needles when Force Awakens was coming out. I was like, please don't suck.
So, yeah,
Yeah,
don't
please don't
screw
be
us up.
I didn't even remember the movie after
How
I saw
could
it
you
the
mess
first
this
time,
up?
because the entire movie, I was thinking, okay, you're doing okay.
First
Don't
show.
screw it up. Oh, it's pretty good. Don't screw it up. So
Yeah,
I was so
gotcha.
distracted by
Me so.
waiting for the Jar Jar Binks moment that I couldn't even pay attention. So the next day, when I saw it the second time, I could actually sit back and enjoy it and go, oh, okay, yeah, that was pretty good. I actually enjoyed it a lot. There's a lot of dissension among our ranks about whether The Force Awakens was any good or not. A lot of people think it's too much like the first movie, like the first Star Wars.
That was by design, by the way.
I think that worked. I think it will introduce a whole new generation to that storyline, and it will get people excited about Star Wars again. And I think it's worked. I think you see the reaction to that movie and Rogue One and the movie that's coming out in December, The Last Jedi. It's just going to be a whole new generation of Star Wars fans. I know, we're like going crazy.